Hello, and welcome to One Step Wiser channel. Let's learn, grow, and evolve together. Imagine two people standing in the same storm. Rain is pouring relentlessly, the wind is violent, and lightning strikes around them. Both stand still, both appear calm, both seem strong. To anyone observing from a distance, they look identical. There is no visible difference in their behavior, yet inside, something entirely different is happening. One person is silently thinking, I hate this. I want this to end. I have no choice but to bear it. The other person is thinking, this is difficult, but I understand why I am here. I know this moment is temporary. From the outside, they look the same, but internally, they are worlds apart. The first person is practicing tolerance. The second person is practicing patience. Most people use patience and tolerance interchangeably. We hear phrases throughout our lives such as be patient, be tolerant, adjust, learn to endure, stay silent, and compromise. And because they are used in similar situations, we unconsciously assume they mean the same thing. However, they do not. Patience and tolerance are not simply two different words describing the same idea. They are two fundamentally different relationships with discomfort and pain. Tolerance is often passive. Patience is active. Tolerance is about surviving discomfort, while patience is about understanding discomfort. Tolerance asks, how long can I bear this? While patience asks, why am I bearing this? That single difference appears small, but hidden inside it is a truth that many people spend their entire lives never realizing. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is believing that happiness comes from avoiding pain. Human beings spend a large part of their lives trying to escape discomfort, difficulty, struggle, and suffering. We convince ourselves that if we could simply suppress every painful thing from life, we would finally become happy. But reality works differently. We can choose the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. We can choose the pain of exercise or the pain of illness. We can choose the pain of studying or the pain of ignorance. We can choose the pain of honest conversations or the pain of unresolved resentment. Life does not present us with a choice between pain and no pain. Instead, life presents us with a choice between meaningful pain and meaningless pain. Now imagine two individuals working at the same company. They sit at the same desk, perform similar tasks, and report to the same difficult boss. A boss who micromanages every task, dismisses every idea, and has never once said the words, well done, to anyone. Every morning, the boss walks in and begins demeaning both of them. He interrupts them constantly. He criticizes their methods. He takes credit for their work and questions every decision they make, yet never appreciates them, even when the results they produce are exceptional. The first individual sits through it every single day without saying a word. His colleagues admire him. They say, he's so patient. He never loses his temper. He's incredible. The second individual also sits through it every day. He responds with calmness as well. He never raises his voice and never fights back. From the outside, both individuals appear identical, but internally, they are living completely different realities. The first individual feels trapped. He has disliked his job for years, yet he continues showing up simply because he believes he has no other choice. Every morning, he wakes up with frustration already sitting inside him. He suppresses his emotions, swallows his anger, and repeatedly tells himself to simply endure. There is no meaning attached to his struggle, no sense of growth, no direction. He is suffering, but the suffering feels empty. Every passing day slowly drains a little more energy, a little more motivation, and a little more of who he is. The second individual experiences the same difficult circumstances, but his internal dialogue is completely different. Instead of constantly replaying negative thoughts and silently asking, why is this happening to me? He asks himself a different question. How well can I perform despite this? He understands that the work he is doing is not merely about pleasing his boss or gaining approval. For him, the work itself becomes a challenge, a way to measure his own capability, discipline, and growth. Making a good impression is not his priority. Becoming better at what he does is. Tolerance says, I hate this, but I will suffer through it. Patience says, this is difficult, but I understand why I am carrying it. Sometimes strength is not determined by how much pain a person can endure. Sometimes strength is determined by whether the pain they are carrying has meaning. This is where tolerance becomes dangerous. Tolerance appears noble and admirable. Society often praises it. We are taught from a young age to remain quiet, avoid conflict, adjust ourselves, and maintain peace. While these values are important, they can also become harmful if misunderstood. Many people spend years tolerating situations they should never tolerate. They tolerate disrespect. They tolerate emotional exhaustion. They tolerate environments that gradually destroys their confidence. They tolerate treatment that slowly drains their energy and happiness. The dangerous part is that many convince themselves they are being mature, patient, and understanding just because they are tolerating and not saying anything, avoiding several conflicts, and getting appreciation from the world that they are so understanding while internally suffocating themselves to death. Maturity and silent suffering are not the same thing. People often believe suppressed emotions disappear. They do not. Suppressed anger does not disappear. Suppressed frustration does not disappear. Suppressed sadness does not disappear. Suppressed disappointment does not disappear. Anger becomes irritation. Frustration becomes anxiety. Sadness becomes emotional numbness. Stress becomes exhaustion. Fear becomes overthinking. Resentment becomes bitterness. People believe they buried emotions by tolerating and keeping quiet in the most devastating situations, but these buried things are never dead. They are simply hidden underground to explode later. This explains why seemingly calm people suddenly explode. It explains why kind people sometimes unexpectedly become cold and distant. It explains why relationships that appeared stable suddenly collapse. The explosion itself did not occur overnight. The pressure was building for a long time before anyone noticed. Another major misunderstanding is the belief that patience simply means waiting. Many people assume patience is equivalent to standing still while time passes. But patience is not waiting. Anyone can wait. Waiting can happen with frustration. Waiting can happen with anger. Waiting can happen with resentment. A person standing in a queue while becoming increasingly irritated is waiting, but they are, obviously, not practicing patience. Healing cannot be forced. Trust cannot be forced. Knowledge cannot be forced. Relationships cannot be forced. Meaning cannot be forced. Everything in life follows a process. Yet humans constantly fight against process because we want very impatient to get immediate outcomes. We want immediate success, immediate happiness, immediate healing, and immediate results. Perhaps the greatest lesson of all is understanding that strength does not mean tolerating every burden endlessly. Society often praises people who silently tolerate everything without a hiccup. Yet true strength is not about tolerating unlimited pain. True strength is knowing which pain should be carried and which pain should be released. Patience creates peace because it understands the purpose behind responding calmly and respectfully, even in the toughest situations. Tolerance creates pressure because it often suppresses the emotional growth. Patience creates understanding, while tolerance creates accumulation. Patience allows people to grow, while tolerance merely allows people to survive. At the end of life, people regret being tolerant to the most horrendous things that had wrongly happened to them. They regret years spent remaining silent. They regret opportunities missed because of fear. They regret tolerating circumstances that should have changed long ago. Perhaps the strongest people are not those who suffer the most. Perhaps the strongest people are those who understand which pain deserves to be understood and which pain deserves to be acted upon. Because patience is not waiting that everything would be fine magically. Are you having patience? Or are you just tolerating? Think about all those moments since childhood when you stayed silent and swallowed your anger, disappointment, hurt, or negative emotions, not because you were being patient, but because you were merely tolerating. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that remaining quiet automatically means maturity. We were told things like, don't speak back, stay quiet, adjust, or good people don't argue. Gradually, silence became confused with wisdom. But silence and wisdom are not the same thing. As children, we often remain quiet because we have little control over our environment. We tolerate because we are dependent. We tolerate because we are afraid of punishment, rejection, conflict, or disappointing others. Over time, many people unknowingly carry that same pattern into adulthood. They continue swallowing emotions, suppressing thoughts, and convincing themselves that tolerating everything is a sign of strength. Then one day they proudly tell themselves, I'm just being patient. But many times they are not. They are tolerating. The difference is important because patience and tolerance may look identical from the outside, but internally they are completely different experiences. Now imagine finding yourself in a situation where someone repeatedly pushes your boundaries, constantly triggers you, or continuously demeans and criticizes you. Ask yourself an important question. Am I practicing patience here, or am I simply tolerating what should not be tolerated? Many people believe tolerance makes them look mature. They fear that speaking up will damage their image. They think maturity means becoming emotionally untouchable, remaining silent in every situation, and never opening their mouth even in the most disrespectful circumstances. But patience was never meant to turn a person into a silent spectator of their own suffering. Patience does not say, stay quiet no matter what happens. Patience says, understand the situation first, then respond wisely. Patience teaches timing, it teaches control, it teaches understanding. The more patience a person develops, the more they learn when to speak, how to speak, and what exactly should be said. Patience does not remove your voice, it teaches you how to use it. Because not every criticism deserves an argument. Not every negative comment deserves a reaction. Not every insult deserves your emotional energy. Sometimes responding to everything is like trying to fight every dog that barks while walking down the street. You will exhaust yourself before reaching your destination. But there is another side to this truth. Not every silence is wisdom either. You should never become a punching bag onto which people repeatedly unload their frustrations, disrespect, manipulation, or negativity. You should never stand there taking every emotional hit, every insult, every piece of nonsense, while convincing yourself that you are being a good person simply because you have chosen not to speak. Because patience does not mean allowing people to destroy you. Patience does not mean allowing people to take enormous advantage of your silence. Patience does not mean becoming a person with no mouth, no boundaries, and no self-respect. True patience is not weakness. True patience is strength under control. Tolerance says, I will stay quiet because I am afraid. Patience says, I will respond when necessary, and when I do, I will respond with understanding rather than emotion. And perhaps that is one of the biggest differences people learn too late. True patience is not losing your voice, it is learning how to use it with wisdom. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Drop me a comment below of what you want me to cover next. Thanks, and I will see you guys next time.